The unopened box. The room was quiet, only the sound of soft rain touching the windows. Keanu sat on the edge of his chair, a small wrapped box resting on the table in front of him. It was not an ordinary gift. It was from Anna, and she had handed it to him hours ago with a look that seemed heavier than words. She had not explained what was inside. She had simply said, "Open it when you are alone. You will understand." Keanu's hands hovered above the box, but he did not rush. His heart carried a strange weight. He had received many gifts in his life, from friends, fans, even strangers who admired his humility. But this felt different. This was not about celebration or a token of friendship. This box carried a silence that unsettled him, like it held a secret buried deep in the folds of time. The hook came from the unknown. Why had Anna given him something with such gravity? Why had her eyes glistened when she passed it to him, as if she was both relieved and afraid? The tension in the air made the moment feel less like a gift and more like a confession waiting to surface. He touched the ribbon, slowly pulling at it, but before he opened it, memories rushed back. He remembered the first time he met Anna. It was on a film set years ago. She had been new to Hollywood, still learning the language, still struggling with self-doubt. He had watched her from a distance as she rehearsed her lines again and again, whispering to herself, trying to hide her nervousness. Most people on that set were too busy to notice her quiet struggle. But he did, and in that moment, he had chosen to treat her with kindness instead of indifference. He walked over to her and said, "You're doing fine. Don't be hard on yourself. Just breathe." Those simple words had lit up her face, giving her strength. From that day on, Anna had seen him not only as a co-star, but as someone who understood what it meant to feel small in a room full of giants. That memory now echoed in his mind as he stared at the mysterious gift. The rain grew heavier. Keanu finally lifted the lid of the box. Inside was a small leather-bound journal, worn at the edges, its cover soft from years of being held. He picked it up, and the weight of it felt personal, almost sacred. There was a note tucked inside the first page. His breath caught as he opened it and read the words written in Anna's delicate handwriting. "This belonged to someone who once changed my life before you did. I never spoke of it. I never shared it. But I believe you deserve to know. There is a truth here that will explain why I gave it to you. Open carefully because what you find may change how you see both me and yourself." Keanu sat frozen, his mind racing. What could be inside that would connect their lives so deeply? Was this about family, about loss, about some hidden link he had never imagined? The suspense clung to him, pulling him into a storm of questions. He turned the page, and the first entry began. "There was a night long ago when I met a stranger who showed me kindness when I had nothing. That stranger's name was Reeves." Keanu's heart skipped. His eyes widened. Who was this stranger? Could it be a coincidence, or was there a secret thread between his past and hers that neither of them had spoken about? In that moment, the gift was no longer a gift. It was a doorway into a truth he had never expected, one that would test not only his heart, but also his resilience, his humility, and his kindness. The rain outside turned into thunder, and Keanu knew one thing clearly: this was only the beginning. The journal rested on Keanu's lap like a fragile relic, as if opening it too quickly might break the invisible thread tying the past to the present. He hesitated, listening to the rhythm of the storm outside. The thunder rolled like a warning, but curiosity pushed harder than fear. The first page had already given him a shock, but he knew he had to keep reading. "There was a night long ago when I met a stranger who showed me kindness when I had nothing. That stranger's name was Reeves." Keanu's eyes followed the words with disbelief. A Reeves? Not just a coincidence? His father had lived a life full of shadows and mistakes, disappearing from his childhood too early. His family tree carried more silence than stories. Was this journal pointing to his father, or someone else tied to him? Hook after hook tightened in his chest. Was Anna connected to his father's hidden life? Or was this about some forgotten kindness from a stranger with the same last name? The mystery had too many doors, and each one led to a truth he might not be ready for. He turned the page, and the handwriting grew more detailed. I was young, alone, and the city felt colder than the night itself. My dream had carried me far from home, but dreams are heavy when no one believes in you. I sat outside a cafe, hungry, broke, and invisible. No one looked at me. No one cared. Until a man stopped. His coat was simple, his hands rough, but his eyes, they carried warmth. He gave me food, asked nothing in return. He said only this: "Someday, when you stand strong, pass it forward. Do not forget." Keanu closed his eyes, the words echoing in his heart. That sounded like something he himself would say. It sounded like the values his mother had taught him, the values he had carried quietly through Hollywood, never seeking attention, but always choosing kindness. Was fate echoing through generations, binding lives together? As he flipped through more pages, a pattern emerged. The journal was not about moments of glory. It was about moments of survival. It spoke of nights where hope was thin and how small acts of kindness stitched life back together. One page after another, it described hardships, fears, and the gentle voices of strangers who gave strength. And then came the next twist. In one entry, the writer described the man in more detail. He said his name was Keanu Reeves. He was passing through, and I never saw him again. But his words stayed. They shaped me. Without him, I may not have found the courage to rise the next day. Keanu's breath caught. Keanu Reeves, that was his father's name. The father who had been absent, who had left behind more pain than guidance. Could it be that the same man who failed him had once lifted someone else? A storm of emotions clashed within him. Anger, sorrow, confusion, but also a strange flicker of pride. Maybe his father, broken as he was, had left fragments of goodness scattered in the world. Maybe those fragments had reached Anna in ways he never knew. And then the second hook revealed itself. Why had Anna carried this journal for so long? Why had she chosen this exact moment to give it to him? Keanu remembered the look in her eyes when she had handed him the box. She had looked not like someone giving a gift, but like someone releasing a burden. He read on. Years later, when I began to rise in my career, I met someone who reminded me of him. Someone who spoke with the same humility, who carried silence but made it feel safe. That man was you, Keanu. His chest tightened as if the walls of the room had moved closer. This was more than coincidence. Anna's life had been touched by his father's kindness long before he came into her world, and through that invisible chain, her heart had found recognition in him. The journal ended abruptly, with unfinished pages, but the weight of it was enough to shake him. Yet there was more. Tucked in the back cover was another folded note, newer, written not in the faded ink of the journal's author, but in Anna's hand. It read, "I never told you because I was afraid it would change how you see yourself. But the truth is, your kindness is not only yours. It is a legacy, a part of you that has been waiting to be seen. Open your heart, Keanu, because the story isn't over. I need to tell you the rest face to face." Keanu held the note with trembling fingers. The suspense was unbearable. He knew Anna carried a truth that went beyond paper. The question now was not what the gift revealed, but what conversation awaited them. A secret still hidden behind her eyes, waiting to be spoken. The storm. Outside began to calm, but inside Keanu another storm had just begun. Face to face. The night after Keanu read the journal felt endless. He could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his father's name written on those faded pages. alongside words of gratitude from a stranger who had once been saved. The irony was sharp. His father had abandoned him, yet he had offered hope to someone else. Keanu sat in silence, wondering if kindness was sometimes scattered unevenly, like light breaking through broken glass. Was it possible that the man who failed him could still leave behind a gift to the world? A gift that somehow circled back through Anna? The hook of uncertainty twisted his thoughts. Had Anna given him the journal only to show a connection with his father? Or was there something larger, something more personal, that she had never told him? By morning, he knew he could not wait. He called Anna. His voice was calm, but his chest burned with questions. "Anna, we need to meet," he said. Her silence on the other end was telling. Then came her answer, soft and steady. "I knew you would call. Come by tonight. I'll explain." All day, Keanu carried the weight of suspense. His film commitments, his phone calls, even the simple act of walking down the street felt unreal. The city moved around him, but he was trapped inside one question. What secret is she keeping? That evening, he arrived at Anna's home. She welcomed him quietly, her face lit by a soft lamp in the corner. Her eyes looked tired, but they also carried a strength that unsettled him. "Did you read it?" she asked. "I did," he replied, his voice heavy. "Anna, why me? Why now?" She gestured for him to sit. The air between them felt like glass, fragile, ready to shatter at the slightest truth. "Because it's not just a story about your father," she said slowly. "It's a story about me, and about what shaped me long before you and I became friends." Her words pulled him deeper into suspense. What could possibly connect his father, her past, and their present? She reached for a drawer and pulled out a photograph. It was old, edges bent, colors faded. Keanu leaned closer, and his breath caught. The photo showed a younger Anna, barely a teenager, standing with a woman he did not recognize. Beside them was a man, tall, rugged, wearing a coat, his father's face. Keanu froze. "Where did you get this?" he whispered. Anna's voice shook as she answered. "My mother gave it to me before she passed. She told me this man was the reason we survived that winter. His name was Samuel Reeves. I didn't know until years later who he really was, until I met you, and felt the same presence I felt when I was a child." The hook tightened even more. Could it be that his father's kindness had directly touched Anna's family, creating a bond that fate later used to bring them together? Anna continued, tears forming in her eyes. "I never spoke about it because I was afraid you'd reject it. I thought if you knew, you'd see me differently. But now, I believe this was meant to be revealed. Because you carry his kindness, but in a way he never could. You turned his broken legacy into something pure." Keanu's chest ached. He had spent years distancing himself from his father's shadow, never speaking of him, never forgiving. And now Anna was telling him that part of his father's humanity had saved her life. But another question rose, sharper than the rest. "Anna," he said, his voice low, "what is it you're still not telling me? Because I can feel there's more." She looked away, her silence stretching like a wall between them. Then finally she whispered, "Because the journal wasn't just my mother's. It belonged to someone else too. Someone tied to both of us. And that truth, I've been too, afraid to face alone." Keanu leaned forward, his heart pounding. Every word from her mouth pulled him closer to a revelation he wasn't sure he was ready for. The hooks tangled tightly now. A photograph linking his father to her past. A journal binding their stories together, and a hidden truth that only she could reveal. Anna stood, walked toward a cabinet, and pulled out an envelope sealed with wax. She placed it in his hands. "This," she said softly, "is the part I never had the courage to open. I think it's time we face it together." Keanu held the envelope, feeling the same weight he had felt with the box the night before. Whatever was inside could shatter the fragile understanding of who he was and who they were to each other. The storm outside had passed, but inside the room, another storm was only just beginning. The envelope of silence, Keanu held the envelope like it was alive. The wax seal was unbroken, yet it carried a weight heavier than stone. His hands trembled slightly, not because of fear alone, but because he knew that once it was opened, nothing between him and Anna would remain the same. The silence in the room was unbearable. Anna sat across from him, her eyes fixed on the envelope, as if she had been staring at it for years without daring to touch it. Keanu finally broke the silence. "Anna, why didn't you open this yourself?" Her voice cracked when she answered, "Because I was afraid of what it would say, afraid it might confirm things I didn't want to believe. And maybe, deep inside, I was waiting for you. I felt this wasn't only my truth. It was yours too." Hook after hook pulled the moment tighter. Was the envelope carrying proof of a hidden connection between their families? Was it a letter from his father, or something that revealed why Anna's mother had carried both the journal and photograph for so long? Keanu took a slow breath and broke the seal. Inside was a folded letter, yellowed by time, the ink faded but still legible. He unfolded it carefully, his heart pounding louder than the ticking clock on the wall. The letter began, "To whoever finds this, there are truths that must be spoken, even if my voice is gone. Years ago, I crossed paths with a woman and her child. They were alone, struggling. I gave what little I could, and I left, thinking I was just another stranger. But in my heart, I carried the weight of that meeting, because what I saw in that child's eyes was a reflection of what I lost in my own, a daughter I could never raise, a bond I abandoned. I was not a good man, but in that moment, I tried to be human." Keanu's hands shook. He stopped reading, his throat dry. Anna leaned closer, whispering, "Keep going." He forced himself to read the next lines. "If this reaches the one it belongs to, know this. My name is Samuel Reeves. I do not ask for forgiveness. I ask only that the kindness I gave that night is remembered not for me, but for the child who carried it forward. I pray that one day someone stronger than me will make my mistakes right." Keanu felt his chest collapse. His father's words were on the page, not spoken to him, but to strangers. Strangers who had become tied to his own life. The hook was brutal. His father had admitted his failures not to his son, but to Anna's family. Anna reached out, touching his hand gently. "Do you see now? Your father may have been broken, but the kindness he gave saved us. Without him, I wouldn't be here, and without you, I wouldn't have survived Hollywood. The circle is complete, Keanu. It was always meant for you to—" "No." But Keanu's mind was restless. Anger and sadness fought inside him. He wanted to shout, "Why didn't he write to me? Why didn't he come back for me?" Yet another hook twisted into place. Was his father trying to redeem himself not through his son, but through strangers, because he believed he had lost the right to stand before Keanu? The letter ended with one final line that cut deeper than anything else. "If my son ever learns of this, tell him I am sorry I was not the man he needed. But know that through others, I tried to pass him something. Hope, even if it was not from my hands to his." Keanu's tears finally broke free. For years he had carried the silence of his father's absence, building his own life on resilience, humility, and quiet acts of kindness. Now he realized that even in brokenness, his father had left a thread of humanity behind. But then came another unexpected twist. Inside the envelope, hidden beneath the letter, was a smaller piece of paper. On it was a name and an address. Anna saw it before he could speak. Her face went pale. That's my uncle's address, she whispered. He was the only one who knew the full story. I never asked him because I thought it was better left in the dark. Keanu folded the note slowly. The hook grew sharper. The story wasn't finished. There was someone still alive who held the missing piece, someone who could tell them what neither the journal nor the letter could reveal. He looked at Anna, his voice steady despite the storm in his heart. Then we go to him. Together. Anna nodded, her hand tightening around his. In that moment, they both understood. What lay ahead was not just about uncovering the past, but about facing truths that could redefine their present. The uncle's truth. The next morning, the city was calm, but inside Keanu, a storm raged. The letter's final line had left a wound he could not ignore. For years, he had lived with silence about his father. Now, silence was no longer possible. The note with an address, Anna's uncle's address, was like a compass pointing to the last piece of a puzzle too painful and too important to leave unfinished. Anna sat beside him in the car as they drove through narrow streets toward the old part of the city. Her hands were folded on her lap, but Keanu noticed the way her fingers tightened now and then, as if holding on to invisible fear. She had spent years carrying this secret. Now the truth was close enough to breathe. "Anna," he said quietly, "are you ready for this?" She looked at him, her eyes searching his. "No, but I know I have to be." "And you? Are you ready to hear more about the man you've been running from all your life?" The hook in her question cut deep. Was he ready? No, he wasn't. But he also knew some truths didn't wait for readiness. They demanded to be faced, no matter how raw. They arrived at a small house tucked behind tall iron gates, its walls faded. With age, its windows clouded with dust. A dog barked faintly in the distance. The place looked forgotten by time, but Keanu could feel the weight of untold stories inside its walls. Anna knocked. After a long pause, the door creaked open. An elderly man with sharp eyes and a weathered face stood there, leaning on a cane. He looked at Anna first, his expression softening with recognition, then at Keanu with a flicker of unease, almost as if he had been expecting this moment all along. "You came?" the uncle said, his voice rough but steady. "I wondered if you ever would." Anna's throat tightened. "Uncle, we found the journal and the letter. It mentioned you." The old man sighed, stepping aside. "Then it's time. Come in." Inside, the house smelled of old paper and faint incense. Books lined the walls, and photographs sat hidden under a thin film of dust. He motioned for them to sit. Keanu's heart thudded heavily as he saw another photograph on a shelf, his father's face again, standing with Anna's mother and her younger self. The uncle sat opposite them, resting his cane against the chair. "You want to know about Samuel Reeves," he said flatly. Keanu leaned forward. "I want to know why his life touched hers, and why he wrote that letter." The uncle nodded slowly, his eyes clouded with memory. "Samuel was a broken man, yes. But he wasn't only that. He carried guilt heavier than chains. When he helped my sister and Anna that winter, he didn't just give them food, he gave them hope. He returned several times after that, bringing what little he could. He told me once in private that he had a son he had failed, a boy he abandoned. His eyes were filled with shame when he said, 'Your name, Keanu.' He didn't deserve forgiveness, he knew it, but he wanted to keep giving where he could, so the goodness he couldn't give you might still exist in the world." The hook landed sharp. His father had not vanished completely. He had lived in fragments, in moments of quiet kindness to strangers, trying to rewrite his sins through them. Keanu's voice cracked. "So he remembered me? He spoke of me?" The uncle's gaze softened. "He did. He said you were the reason he kept trying, even from a distance." He wanted to believe you would become everything he could not. And when I see you now, I know—" He was right. Anna's eyes filled with tears. She reached for Keanu's hand, squeezing it tightly. "Do you see now? Your kindness is not only yours. It was born from pain, yes, but also from a thread your father left behind. You didn't just inherit his mistakes. You inherited his chance to heal the world differently." Keanu closed his eyes, overwhelmed. For years he had lived in silence, never speaking of his father, burying the wounds. Now the wound had been reopened, but instead of only pain, there was a new layer: understanding. But the uncle wasn't finished. He leaned forward, his voice heavy. "There's one more thing. Samuel left something else. Not just the journal, not just the letter. He gave me a small box and said, 'If one day my son comes, give this to him. It will be his choice what to do with it.'" The hook pulled tighter. Another box, another secret. The uncle stood slowly, walked to a locked cabinet, and brought out a small wooden chest. Its surface was scratched, its hinges old, but it was intact. He placed it on the table before Keanu. "This is yours," the uncle said, and with it, the last of what he left behind. Keanu stared at the chest, his heart heavy. His hands hovered over it, the same way they had hovered over Anna's gift days ago. He had opened one box and found a storm of secrets. Would this chest carry closure, or another wound? Anna whispered, her voice trembling. "Keanu, whatever it is, we face it together." The chest sat between them, waiting. The final voice, the wooden chest, sat on the table like a silent witness. Its old surface carried scratches that spoke of years gone by, and its weight seemed heavier than its size. Keanu's fingers hovered above it, his breath shallow. Once again he felt the same fear he had felt with Anna's gift, the same fear when he opened the envelope. But this time was different. This wasn't just about secrets. It was about deciding whether he could finally make peace with the shadow of his father. Anna sat close, her hand on his, steadying him. The uncle's eyes remained fixed on the chest, his expression heavy with years of knowing. The silence stretched until Keanu finally whispered, "Whatever's in here, I have to see it." With slow care, he opened the chest. Inside, neatly folded, was a bundle of letters tied with string, a faded photograph, and a small pocket watch. Keanu's hands trembled as he lifted the items one by one. He opened the photograph first. It was old, edges curled, but the faces were clear. His father, younger, smiling faintly. Beside him was a woman, Anna's mother. Between them stood little Anna, her small hand holding the man's coat. Keanu's chest tightened. His father had not just visited once. He had been present enough to leave behind a memory captured in a photograph. The hook deepened. Why had no one spoken of this before? He turned to the letters. The handwriting was unmistakably his father's, shaky but deliberate. Keanu untied the bundle and began reading. "My son," the first letter began, "I do not know if these words will ever reach you. I am not brave enough to hand them to you myself, but I must write them, because silence is killing me. I left you because I believed I was poison to your life. I believed distance would protect you from becoming like me. But not a day passed that I did not think of you. I searched for ways to make up for my failure, and the only way I knew was to help others in your name. Every meal I gave, every kind word, was a prayer for you." Keanu's eyes blurred with tears. He gripped the page tighter as the words bled into his heart. He turned to another letter. "I met a woman and her daughter one winter. I saw in them the same pain I left in you. I could not undo what I had done to you, but I tried to save them from carrying the same wound. Maybe that is why fate later brought you and her together. Maybe this is life's way of showing me that even in failure, some goodness can live on." Anna wiped her tears quietly. Her hand squeezed Keanu's, grounding him. The final letter was shorter, almost like a confession. If you ever read this, son, know that I am sorry. I cannot ask for your forgiveness, but I pray you will forgive yourself for carrying the weight of my mistakes. Live with kindness, not because of me, but because it is who you are. Do not let my absence steal your light. Keanu set the letter down, his chest shaking with sobs he had carried for decades. The pocket watch remained. He picked it up carefully, pressing the button. It clicked open, revealing not just the hands of time, but a tiny note hidden inside. It simply read, "For my son, time is still yours." The hook turned into a release. The watch wasn't just an object. It was a reminder that no matter the past, the present and future still belonged to him. Keanu closed his eyes, whispering, "I forgive you." The uncle leaned back, relief softening his face. Then the story has served its purpose. Anna rested her head on Keanu's shoulder, her voice trembling but steady. "This is why I gave you the journal. I couldn't carry the truth alone anymore. And now, you know you were never truly forgotten." Keanu looked at her, his tears drying into calm. "Thank you, Anna. Not just for the gift, but for helping me find the pieces of myself I thought were lost." In that moment, the heavy silence that had followed him all his life lifted. The pain did not vanish, but it transformed into something else. Understanding, humility, and an unshakable resolve. To live by the kindness his father had only glimpsed. The rain outside had stopped. The sky, once heavy with storm, was now breaking into light. Keanu held the pocket watch tightly, his father's final message echoing in his heart. Time was still his, and he knew now that he would use it to pass forward the kindness that had stitched his broken story into something whole.